He gave me divorce papers out of the blue and disappeared 2 days after he agreed to start dating me again. I'm Martha, and I'm 35 years old. I've been married to Jay, who is 41 years old, for 2 years now. In one word, my marriage was fine. We got used to living with each other, so it was easy. Not much interesting was going on in our lives. I thought it would be weird if we could make our relationship more open and let more people mentally and physically join us, that our marriage might get better. Yes, that's exactly where the trouble began. I never would have thought that such an idea would make my dull and boring life into an exciting ride. First, let's go back to the beginning so you can understand what I'm talking about, and maybe even help me get better advice. When I first met Jay, I didn't think he was interesting at all. He was a dull banker. But I guess I found him interesting because I was having a bad time with money and chose to go on a date with him. I just needed some good money tips to help me figure out how to spend my money and stick to my budget. He proposed after only 3 months of dating, if that's even a word. We kept getting together a lot. I was still making bad choices with my money, so I thought it would be best to get married and let someone else handle my issues. I knew it was bad to marry someone who was going through a hard time, but I didn't know what else to do. It was fine to get married and have sex. Everything else was fine too, because Jay took care of the bills, the big stuff, and everything else a man should do around the house. There was nothing to worry about. I felt better knowing I didn't have to do everything by myself, and had someone I could depend on for both money and help. Being a great mom was fun for me. While I wait for my husband to get home from work, I cook meals for him and set the TV for dinner while we watch it together. There really wasn't anything I could complain about. At some point, it all got so dull. Every day doing the same thing wasn't very fun. There was always the same food, cleaning and setting things up. Jay did help me sometimes, but I felt like I could handle everything by myself. There were times when I thought I wasn't really living my life. I chose to change everything. After setting up everything around the house to work, I had a lot of free time. Catherine, my friend who was also a mother, told me I should join their kids club. I wasn't bothered because I didn't have much going on at home. That was fun for the first 2 months because it was something new and kept me from getting bored at home. I couldn't stand it after a few months because all the wives did was complain about how bad their husbands were. They were always trying to be the title holder for worst wife, of course. I didn't have anything to share or add to what they were going to talk about. Even though my marriage wasn't great, I didn't have a lot to be unhappy about. And Jay wasn't a bad husband like other women said he was. It was getting too poisonous for me, so I started to pull away. All of that did help me make one good friend. Catherine lived next door and was also someone I could talk to. There were things going on in our lives that we both told each other about. We chose to put our health first after the kiddie club, so we started going to the gym. Catherine started going out with one of our gym teachers. Even though he looked good and was stronger than her husband, it was still cheating. Catherine kept telling me to try new things because we both knew we'd be able to get away with them. I didn't want to give in to the urge because I loved Jay and thought I could never cheat on him. I wouldn't cheat on my wife no matter how bad my marriage was. Catherine was cheating on her husband, but I didn't judge her for it. Catherine spent less time with me and more time with her new boyfriend as the days went by. It wasn't my fault, and I was glad to see her happy. I quickly found myself back by myself and went back to my dull life. I stopped going to the gym because it wasn't fun to work out by myself, while Catherine screamed at the teacher in the bathroom. It seemed like Jay and I were living the same life every day. I just wanted things to get interesting again and stop being so boring. I told a friend about this because I knew she had been having similar issues in the past, but now she was very happy in her marriage. I thought that she might be the right person to ask for help. One thing that helped her and her husband agree was when they chose to be open about their marriage, she told me. She told me that it worked for her after seeing my face. I might give it a try. I have nothing to lose by trying to make my marriage work, right? It was better than lying to Jay. It wouldn't make me look bad that he knew what was going on in my life. I had to take strong action to make sure we don't keep living this way. I was sure I didn't want to do anything wrong by hiding it or not telling Jay about it. It was important to me to be a great wife because he had always been a great husband. It kept going through my mind that I should open my marriage. Like a bad song, it stuck in your head and wouldn't go away. I began reading about the good things about having an open marriage. Most of the pieces said that sometimes it's good for the husband and wife to be honest with each other. It seemed like it might work for us as I read more. When my friend first told me about it, I didn't like the idea, but after reading about it and learning some facts, I thought we should give it a try. Telling each other what we wanted and looking into the idea of an open marriage seemed like a way to get out of the rut we were in. The pieces also talked about how important it is to talk to each other and trust each other, which gave me hope that it could make our relationship stronger instead of weaker. I'm going to talk to Jay over the Sunday or Monday. I made sure that the place and things around him were just right for him. So it will be easier for him to agree after we talk about it. I began by telling him how I had been feeling. lately and that it wasn't his fault. There's something new I'd like to try that will help us fall in love again. During our conversation, I told him about my plans and asked if he was okay with moving forward. For about 2 minutes, he didn't say anything. My heart was racing because I wasn't sure if he got what I was saying. She finally spoke up after what seemed like 20 years and asked me if he thought this would make me happy. I'm not sure, I told him. But this is something new, we could try and see how it goes. I also told him it would have been easy for me to cheat on him without him knowing, but that we would no longer trust each other. It looks like telling him that helped him decide to go with my idea. I have to say that it went really well, which wasn't what I expected. I thought we would have a long, never-ending argument where he would yell and scream and possibly say I was already cheating on him. However, the talk was very quiet and short, and it finished on a good note. I was pleased with how things were going and thought they would get better as time went on. I was very excited when I woke up the next morning. It made me feel good to think about all the things that might happen. I got a bunch of dating apps to find potential men and women that we could invite to hang out with us. Of course, I didn't just want it for myself, I also wanted Jay to enjoy himself. So I helped him with that because I knew he wouldn't have time to look. That morning over breakfast, I told Jay that dating apps are the best way to meet the right kind of people who want to date married people. He didn't seem interested and told me to do what I thought was right. That made no sense to me. He either liked the choice or didn't know what to do next. I was sure that he would have said anything against it when we were talking about it. He might have just wanted me to do something so I wouldn't be bored all the time. He smiled at me, kissed me goodbye, and left as he got ready for work. I talked to a lot of people, but one guy caught my attention. He asked me what was going on, and I told him straight out. He didn't care if I was married, divorced, or gay. All he wanted was to have sex. I wrote him an email letting him know that we could meet at my house in 2 days. I couldn't wait to tell Jay about this when he got home that night. After telling him what was going on, I told him I had found someone who was interested in dating me. Jay told me he was glad I was happy. After a long time, we had a lot of sex at night. I fell asleep so long ago that I don't even remember when. When I woke up very late in the morning, Jay had already left for work. When I got to the kitchen, I saw a note that Jay had left. It talked about some important papers that were kept in the study. Jay said I should look at them because they were important. The papers were in the study, so I went there and got them. I thought I was dreaming and that everything was not real. That's not possible. Jay should not have divorce papers that are already signed. What I was seeing made no sense to me. I quickly ran to our bedroom and took out my phone. I tried to call Jay, but his phone was off, and he didn't even show up to work. I didn't know how to find him or where he had gone. Jay's number has been on my mind all day. When I finally gave up, I needed a place to let out my anger and rage. I started writing this post to talk about how I feel and to find out what went wrong in my marriage that made this happen. Weird things happen when you try to get everything. It seems like I was going too far when I thought I could have a loving husband at home who would take care of the money matters, and a lover on the other hand who would treat me like a queen and give me all his love. Thanks for reading this long post. Many thanks for taking the time to read someone else's story. Please let me know if you know how to get out of this mess so that I can fix it. As long as I can keep my marriage together, I'm fine with having a dull married life. We'd value any help and ideas you could give us. Latest news, I want to thank everyone who listened to my story and sent me so much help on what I should do next. To begin, I want to say that I have been going through all the stages of rejection that everyone does. To be honest, I was shocked the first week and was sure Jay would be back. He might have been taking this time to think about all the information I had given him. It was clear that he didn't take this choice lightly. He agreed to share his wife with someone else. I had no doubt that he would give this some thought and get back to me when he was ready. Over the course of the days, my confidence began to drop. I was sure he might not come back by the end of the week. I tried calling his job, his friends, the places he liked, and his cell phone, but no one knew where he was. I told him over and over again to forget about everything and just go home. If my idea made him feel bad, I was even ready to keep living this dull life. I was so tired that all I did when I woke up was drink coffee, lie on the couch, and watch a bunch of Netflix shows at once. I didn't want to do anything, not even take a shower. Jay had been gone for almost 10 days. When I went outside to get the trash cans, I saw a letter from Jay written to me in the mailbox. I was so happy that I grabbed it and ran inside to open it right away. It could have been an apology along with plane tickets to a fun place. It had a letter that Jay had written by hand. As I began to read it, tears began to flow from my eyes, wetting the paper. 6 months into our marriage, Jay told me that he had been having an affair. When I tried to talk to him about ending our marriage, he felt bad and couldn't stand me. In order to give me the freedom to live my life, he chose to get a divorce. I learned that he had asked to be transferred to a different city, where he plans to live with his lover. I told him that he had made plans to make sure I get regular money to pay my bills. He told me that he often thought about ending our marriage by telling me about his affair. He felt bad about breaking my heart because I looked so happy. He also told me that he couldn't come back into my life because he and his girlfriend were going to have their first child in a few months. I told him I shouldn't blame myself for the breakup because it wasn't my fault. He would have sent the divorce papers even if I hadn't brought up the opening marriage stuff. He told me he was sorry for the affair and asked me to forgive him. The rest of the conversation was the same. Along with the letter, he sent me a check to help pay my bills. I wanted to tear the check apart because I was so mad, but I knew I needed the money. While I sat on the floor and read the letter over and over, I hoped it was all a joke. There was a stamp from a different state on the letter, so I know this wasn't a joke. I became very angry and began to scream and cry out loud. We were married for almost 10 years and I still didn't know that Jay was having an affair. I feel so stupid now. How did his love end so quickly, in just 6 months? I wasn't sure if it was me or him who was bad. I never had any doubts about him. He was a great guy. He did everything I asked of him without a fight. That could have been the clue I missed. Even when I was in that stupid kiddie club, all the wives were upset that their men spent more time with their girlfriends than with them. They didn't even give me any hints that Jay was having an affair. At least they knew their husbands were seeing other women. I thought Jay would be different from the other men, but I was wrong. It was so stupid of me to cheat on Jay, but even when I had the chance, I chose to be a good wife and not do anything that would hurt my marriage. I was a good wife, even though it was hard for me, and I never thought about doing anything that could hurt my marriage. I was still here after everything, sitting with the letter from my husband, who told me about his affair that he had been having for 2 years, and I had no idea about. I wasn't sure if Jay was too good to hide this affair, or if I was just naive enough to believe that he couldn't have one. Getting rid of all the stuff in the house kept me very busy for the next few weeks. I no longer wanted to live in the same house. I would stay in a hotel for now, and then figure things out from there. I knew things were going to get really tough from here on out. What was I going to do with my life? I didn't have a job or a place to live. I didn't. I think I'd be having trouble with money again after getting married. I wasn't ready to sign the divorce papers yet because I knew it would mean ending my marriage. What else did I know? Jay couldn't marry his woman until he got a divorce. That was the only good thing about this whole mess. My marriage was about to end because of me. There were times when I didn't see any reason to keep those papers when I knew Jay no longer loved me. I would sometimes have bad thoughts that told me to hurt Jay for what he did to me. My mind was so messed up that it didn't match up with who I was. I emailed Jay and asked him to come see me if he really wanted me to end our marriage. I wouldn't sign the papers he needed so badly to marry his girlfriend until we met in person. It took him a while to decide, but in the end he gave in. To get him to spend a lot of money, I made sure to book a fancy restaurant. As always, he was on time. It had been almost a month since I last saw him, but he looked too cold. When I asked him how he was, he said he didn't have time to answer and felt like getting right to the point. He told me straight out what I had to do to sign the divorce papers, and I was shocked by how cold he was to me. From what I remember, it was him who cheated on me, not me. Why did he act so proud and tall about it? If he kept taking care of me this way, I told him I would take him to court for cheating on me. He laughed at my lack of confidence and told me that going to court would only cost me money and time, making it impossible for me to find work. He wouldn't lose much time or money, but I would lose a lot. He told me to think things through and not let my feelings affect my choice. He was ready to give me the money and the job, but all he asked was that I sign the divorce papers. Being sure that Jay would never come back to me, even if I didn't divorce him, I knew it wasn't a bad deal. I knew that the end result would be the same today, or tomorrow we would get a divorce. It was better for me to take the job and the money because they would at least help me become independent in the future. After getting the papers out and signing them, Jay took them from me and left before I could say anything. It felt like I was dealing with a deadbeat to whom I had already paid the money I owed. I went home and stood in the shower while cold water ran over my whole body. The way my life turned out made me cry because I didn't want to feel any pain. A month ago, I was a bored housewife who was ready for some fun and excitement. I was crying under the shower today because I was no longer a bored housewife after getting split. Things can go so wrong in life. I wasn't happy being a bored housewife until a month ago. I wanted something more. But I cried today because I wanted to spend the rest of my life being that bored housewife. Some people say that you're never happy with what you have until you lose it. Actually, I think I fully understand what it meant today. I want to thank everyone who has been a part of my journey over the last month from the bottom of my heart. To anyone who feels like their life is dull and not very interesting, it seems like something you should keep. Instead of being paralyzed by fear of making changes that will probably ruin everything, try to enjoy what you already have. People should not be too greedy and learn from my mistakes. Check in on your partners often to see if they're bored and ask yourself why they're not doing anything. I just want to say, don't be stupid like I was, and pick up things when you see them. For the rest of your lives, I hope you all have wonderful, happy relationships. I hope to find my happily ever after soon. Thanks for all the love.